So on the bottom of Daf Ayin Chesam with base, the Mishnah here was speaking about two chatzeros side by side that had a charitz in between, a ditch, and that ditch was filled with earth. Once you fill it with earth, so then it connects the two chatzeros. That's what it said in the Mishnah. Frek the Gemara, va'afilu b'stama. Is that true if a person puts the earth there and he doesn't spell out clearly that I'm planning on keeping this earth there? He just dumps earth in it. Is that okay to make it flat, that you should be able to carry from one to, you can make an Eruv Chatzeris together? But we learned in another Mishnah where it talks about also a case where a person is filling a place with earth. What is this Mishnah talking about? A house. A house where there's a mace inside. What's the halacha with a house that has a mace inside? So there's a tumah of oil inside the house. So the halacha is as follows. If inside this oil there's a space of an opening of a tefach, so the tumah that's inside this oil becomes stuck inside this oil. It doesn't go out of it. But if the space where the mace is inside, you close it up and there's no opening of a tefach inside the oil, so the tumah of the mace is oila, it goes out all the way out to the shemayim. It's oila v'yeredes because there's no space of a tefach to contain the tumah inside. So then it's bekas for oila. So what happens if you have a house? It had a mace inside, and now shemilu teven tzreides, you filled it with straw and you filled it with tzreides, with pebbles, ubitloi. But the Mishnah there adds, he befedish said verbally that I'm going to leave it there. I'm leaving those. So now there's no opening space of a tefach inside. Bottle. So then it's going to be bottle. It stays there, and therefore the tumah is going to come out of this house. It's not going to stay inside. There's no tefach. So what is Gemara Medayik? Bitloi in. It says in the Mishnah, the Lashon bitloi. He befedish said that he wants to leave it there. Loi bitloi loi. But if not, then it's not just the fact that he put it there. It's not enough. Could be it's just there temporarily. He's going to take it out. So in our Mishnah it said mila offer. Put offer and tzreides. So why is it if you put it there without saying anything befedish? Amar Rav Huna, says Rav Huna, man tana ohalais. Who is the tana? We just quoted a Mishnah. This is from a Sechta Ohalais. Who is the tana of Ohalais that discusses this subject? Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi is the one that discussed this subject. Rabbi Yosi, but if it's Rabbi Yosi, even though I didn't say in that Mishnah befedish it's Rabbi Yosi, but the Gemara is now going to bring a braise that Rabbi Yosi discussed this exact subject. So if it's Rabbi Yosi, ipcha shaminan lei. We know that Rabbi Yosi said the opposite of what we just learned in this Mishnah. The Tanya, Rabbi Yosi Omer, Rabbi Yosi says, Teven, if you fill the house with straw, and it's straw that you're leaving there, you're storing it there, and you're not planning on taking it away anytime soon. We know that you're planning on leaving it there. So harehu kistam ofar ubatel. So then it's like ofar, it's like earth that you filled up a place with, and even if you just fill it there stam and you don't say anything, it's going to be batel. So over here in this brayse it says befedish that stam ofar, without saying anything, you place it inside, it's going to be batel there. Afar v'asad l'fanaisai. If you fill a place with earth, even though earth is a much substance that's there l'chayra, meant to stay, and it's different than teven. But if it's afar that you place somewhere, and we know that you're planning on removing it, it's just there temporarily. Harehu kistam teven v'loy batel. So then it's like the status of usually straw, which we say is not batel there. So what do you see over here in this brayse? Rabbi Yosi says, what's the halacha of stam offer? You put offer and you don't say anything verbally. The halacha is that it's considered to be like it's batel. Not like the Mishnah that we just learned. What did it say in our Mishnah? Bitloi. That the offer is only batel if you mevatlet befedish. Elam Ravasi. So therefore Ravasi says, man tana Eiruvin. Who is the tana of our Mishnah here in Eiruvin? Rabbi Yosi. It's Rabbi Yosi of this brayse that says that stam offer is batel there. And that Mishnah in Masechta Ohalais has to be a different Tana. It doesn't say Rabbi Yosi's name there. That Mishnah is a different Tana. So basically the Gemara's answer, Rabbi Asi's answer is, it's a machlaikis. Rav Huna b'reid Rav Yeshua says, no, there's no need to say it's a machlaikis. Tuma ashabis karamis. You're asking a question from putting offer in a house by Tuma, or putting the offer in a ditch to cover up the separation between one chatzar and another. It's no connection. Hanach is a Shabbos, leave is a Shabbos. It's a different halacha. Da fille arneki nami mevatlinish. If there would be something that's muktzeh, even if it's a wallet of money, it's muktzeh. You're not taking it away on Shabbos. So when you fill this ditch with earth, the earth is muktzeh. So on Shabbos, he's not removing this earth. So therefore, even if you put it there stam, without saying that I want to leave it there, we know you're going to leave it there Shabbos. Mashenkin, by the Tumah, when you put earth in a house, not necessarily are you planning on leaving it there. Could be going to take it out. So it's a different story. Over here it's muktzeh. Rashi Amar, Rashi says another teretz. Bayis, achoretz karamis. You're asking a stira from filling a house with earth or filling a ditch with earth. What's the connection? Bishlei mecharetz limitam yakoi. When you have a ditch between two chatzeres, so what is it? What is it designated for? Eventually, what's going to happen? It's going to be filled. Earth is going to fall inside, or eventually you're going to cover it. So the fact that you put the earth there, stam, we say that you're planning on leaving it there. Elabayis limitam yakoi. A house is made. A house is a place to fill with earth. It's not what a house is made for. So therefore, the fact that a person placed earth in a house, he's mistama going to take it away, unless he says befedish bitloi. Only if he says befedish, then I say that he's going to leave it there. So it's not the same thing b'chlal. The next case in the Mishnah was when you have porches, right? Or before actually we get to the porches, we're still talking about the ditch. When you have a ditch between two fields, so what did it say? You could create a small bridge. If you put a board that's at least 4 tfachim wide, going from one field to another, from one chatzah to another, so then you could make an erev together. This is only if you put it in the width of this ditch going across. But if you put it in the length, if you put a piece of wood in the length, we'll look at the picture in a second. Nami, even if you put it there, a kol shuhu, even a small piece of wood, so then it's also going to be okay. It's also going to help to make it into one chatzah. Shaharei miyatoi midalid. You minimized the width of this ditch from being 4 tfachim wide. The ditch, which is the separation, is only a problem if it's 4 tfachim wide. But now that you put this piece of wood there and it's not 4 tfachim wide, so then it's not enough of a separation anymore. So take a look at the picture here. It's going to be picture Tov Samach Zayin, page Samach Hey. So he didn't put a bridge across, but he just put a piece of wood in the middle of the ditch, in the length of the ditch. So in that area where it's 4 tfachim, it has to be 4 tfachim wide, but you minimized the width of this ditch. So that's good enough that it should not be a separation anymore. You see it? Picture Tov Samach Zayin. On page Samach Hey.
Minimum measurement? It
what?
Has to be
4 tfachim wide.
No, but between them one side to the other.
Yeah. It has to be 4 tfachim wide. In order for it to be a separation, the separation has to be 4 tfachim. So if you put something there that minimizes it from those 4 tfachim, so then
and
it's...
the beam also has to be 4 tfachim.
No, the width. The length, I mean, yeah.
Right,
The length. The width could be even a mashal. The Gemara says a mashal, because then it's minimizing the space between the chatzeres. Yeah.
What if it's a 5-6 foot tefach ditch width and you're only a half a tefach?
No, so that's not good. Yeah. Well, here we're talking about a ditch that's exactly 4 tfachim wide. When you have 2 porches, one against another, and what did it say in the Mishnah? You put a board as a bridge from one porch to another, so then it's also, you can make an erev chatzeres together. Amar Rave, says Rave, ha the omrit, or the Bach is geiris, ha the tnan. This that we say in the Mishnah, and the Bach brings the lashon of the Mishnah, v'chein shtei gzusterois, zu keneged zu. So what are we medayik from the Mishnah? That it has to be zu keneged zu in, only if it's taka one across of another. Then putting this board as a bridge between them is going to work. Zu shaloi keneged zu, but if it's 2 porches that are not across each other, loi, then it doesn't work. Or vizu l'mayla mizu nami, if you have 2 porches and one is above the other, it also doesn't work. So you could take a look in the picture. So there's different pshatim, what the pshat of this is. Okay, they have 2 pshatim over here actually. It's not very, in Rashi's pshat, it's not very clear what it means. One pshat of zu shaloi keneged zu is in picture Tov Samach Ches. You have one porch that is sticking out to the Shus HaRabbi, and you have the porch next to it that's sticking out further. It's one pshat. Tov Samach Ches I'm looking at. Tov Samach Ches. Okay, that's zu shaloi keneged zu. One sticks out more than the other. Another pshat that they bring here in Tov Samach Tes is, it's not only that one is sticking out more, the houses are not aligned. It's not just the porches are not aligned. In the case before, when the houses are aligned, but the porches are not aligned, it's not very clear what's the problem if one is sticking out more than the other. So what? You can still put a board straight across. Over here, though, when the houses are not aligned, so if you want to put a board from one porch to another, you can't put it straight across. It's the porch, the whole porch, the entire porch is further in than the other one. That's
nothing to do with halacha, just actually.
no, you could, but it's not. It's going to have to go diagonally. It's going to have to go on a slant. Then you have a third pshat. Look in the next picture. Tafayin. This is the pshat of Rabbeinu Yonason. So he says that you have porches that are across each other. You had before, when it said zu keneged zu, it meant two porches that are across each other. So they're not across each other, mamish straight across, but diagonally across. Okay, it's a house that's further up the block. Okay, so in other words, Bechlal, going back to the Mishnah, when it said zu keneged zu, what does the Mishnah mean when it says zu keneged zu? We're talking about porches that are on the same side of the block, that are near each other, or we're talking about porches that are across the street from each other. Rabbeinu Yonasan's pshat is we're talking about porches that are across the street of each other. And the shaila is it directly across the street, or is it keneged zu, that it's further a little bit down?
It's a big chiddush because it's overlapping the Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, yeah, true.
The way it's off,
Okay.
side by side it's off.
Yeah, right. So it's always there's always a shusarabim below it. The question is, Okay, that's zu keneged zu. Then zu l'maylam zu again. We have two pshatim over here. One pshat is over here that Tafayan Aleph, Rashi's pshat, that you have two porches side by side, and one is just higher than the other one, and the other one is across the Rosh Hashanah zu l'maylam mizu. Another pshat.
So it's mamish one against each other. It's okay.
Yeah. If you have a board.
You can make Eiruvin together.
Yeah. That's the chiddush. If you can make a bridge from one porch to another, even though it goes across to the Rosh Hashanah, but because you have a bridge that you can walk across, you can make an Eiruvin together. Yes. Okay. Zok the Gemara.
The backyards.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course. You make an Erev Chatzeris together. Yeah. Zok the Gemara. Lo yamaran. So this statement of Rava now, that we said that if it's zu l'maylam mizu or zu shaloi keneged zu, so then the bridge, the board that you put in between doesn't work. Lo yamaran ela sheyesh ben zu l'zu shloisha tfachim. If there's a space of 3 tfachim between them, according to the different pshatim that we learned over here. If it's diagonal in a way that there's 3 tfachim separating between them, whether in the height or whether in the position that it's in, so then I say that you can't make a Erev Chatzeris together. Aval ein ben zu l'zu shloisha, even if it's not lined up together, mamish to the height, and it's not lined up also according to the different pshatim here, but there's no 3 tfachim of space between them, then gzustara kumahi. So just like you have one porch, you could also, doesn't have to be a completely straight porch. So over here also, if you look in the picture, they have those red lines in like in the picture Tafayin Aleph or in picture Tafayin Beis. So one is higher than the other, but if there's no 3 tfachim separating in the height, so then it's still good. Or in the picture where it's diagonal, so it's not right across each other. But if there's no space of 3 tfachim between them, in that, so then you can put a bridge. So that's like love it. So I consider it to be like as if it's across each other, and then it's okay. Okay. Zog the Mishnah. Mat bein shebein shtei chatzeres. You have a pile of straw that's right between 2 chatzeres. Gavoya asara tvachim. It's 10 tvachim high. So ma'arven shnayim ve'im ma'arven echad. This pile of straw is like a wall. It's like a wall separating the 2 chatzeres. So you have to make 2 separate Eiruvin Chatzeris. You can't make one Erev Chatzeris. Okay, so they have it in picture Tov Samach Vav, or also in picture Tov Ayin Hey. It's the same picture. They bring it twice. A pile of straw, like a wall of straw separating 2 Chatzeris. So you make 2 separate. It's like a wall. Now Elu Machilin Mikan. The people of one side of the Chatzer could allow their animals to eat from this straw from one side. Ve'elu Machilin Mikan. And the people from the other side could allow the animals to eat from the straw from the other side. What's the chiddush? So Rashi explains, you would have thought that maybe if you're going to allow the animals to eat, so then what's going to happen? On Shabbos, they may eat so much that you're not going to have this wall of the straw anymore. And if not, so then they're not going to be able to carry anymore. It's going to turn into one Chatzer. So the Erev Chatzeres that they each made separately is not going to be good. So the point is, we're not chayshish for this, because the animals don't eat so much. How much would the animals have to eat in order for this wall to not be a wall anymore? We learned before, whenever you have a wall, the opening has to be a breach of 10 amas in order for it to be considered to be one Chatzer. So to be chayshish that the animals are going to eat so much, we're not chayshish. So therefore we could allow them to eat on Shabbos from it. Nismaye tateven masarat tvachim. If this teven, this wall of straw, so there's an opening 10 tvachim.
Less than.
No, nismaye tateven masarat tvachim means, the height of it. That's what we're talking about. The height of this straw came down less than 10 tvachim, then ma'ar v'nechad. So then it's not a good wall anymore. The height of a wall has to be 10 tvachim. Ve'ei ma'ar v'shnayim. You can't make an Eirov separately. It's like one chatzah. Dr. Gemara, what did we say in the Mishnah? That you can allow the animals to eat from this wall of straw. You could allow your animals to eat, but you're not allowed to go and take from this straw and fill up your basket, fill up your kalim from this straw. And then feed your animals. Why not? Because when a person is filling up from this wall of straw, we are chayshish that a person does fill up a lot at a time. And you might end up filling up so much. A person on one side fills up, the person on the other side fills up. You might remove this whole wall, and so then it's not going to be a wall anymore. But the animals eating there on Shabbos, we're not chayshish that that's going to happen. So you can let the animals eat, but you can't fill up. Does that mean that you're allowed to place your animal there to eat? But Ravuna said, it's a Gemara we learned in Shabbos, you're allowed to place your animal on grass to eat on Shabbos. You're not allowed to place your animal on straw, for example, which is muktzah on Shabbos. What's the difference? So Rashi explains that there's a gzeira here. When it comes to grass, what would be the issue? You might come to tear out grass. When you're placing your animal there to eat from the grass, you might tear out the grass for the animal to eat. We're not chayshish Yid's going to do that. Because everyone knows that tearing out grass is tailish, it's a chil Shabbos. So you can place your animal on grass. But to place your animal on teven, on straw, so we're chayshish that you're going to go and feed your animal the straw. Because the issur of feeding the straw to the animal by hand is a issur muktzah. That's something that we're chayshish more for. So therefore you're not allowed to place your animal on the straw. So over here, how could you place your animal on this straw to eat from it on Shabbos? And says the Gemara, you're not placing it there. You just stand in front of the animal so the animal can't walk anywhere else and it goes there by itself. If you place the animal on the straw, that's not allowed. But if you sort of block your animal and it ends up going there by itself, that's okay. And that's what we're talking about over here. Weiter sagt the Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah? You're not allowed to take, so not the Mishnah again, Rav Huna said, that you're not allowed to fill up your basket from this straw. Fragt the Gemara, but in a Braisa it says you are allowed. If you have a house that separates two chatzeros, and there's a door, there's an opening, but umilo teven, you filled up in your house a wall of straw. So ma'arvin shnayim ve'im ma'arvin echad. So now these two chatzeros, because this house that's in between and there's a wall of straw that separates, so therefore it's like two chatzeros and not one. Take a look in the picture. The picture for this is Tov Ayin Vav. Picture Tov Ayin Vav. So you have two chatzeros, a house in between, and then in this house there's a wall of straw inside. So because of that wall of straw, so it separates the two chatzeros. If there wouldn't be that wall of straw, so then this house is shaykh to both chatzeros. It's just like another chatzer, another house in this chatzer over here. But because you put up a wall of straw in between, so therefore it separates. So now both chatzeros have to make their own erev chatzeros, just like we learned before. Then the Braisa says, from each side, you can come and take from this wall of straw and put into your basket and eat from it and give your animal to eat from it. So right here you see clearly in the Braisa that you could take and put into your basket. The Braisa says weiter, if this wall of straw that's inside the house is now less than 10 tfachim high, shneim asurim. So now people on both sides of the chatzeres will not be allowed to carry. If they made separate Eiruvin chatzeres, and now the wall that was in between them is not there anymore, so they can't carry anymore. So what do you do if at least one of them wants to be able to carry noyel as beisai? So one of the people that has his chatzer is going to have to, a house open to his chatzer, he's going to have to lock his house, and he's mevatel his rights to the chatzer. and then you're going to be able to carry in that chatzar. Who aser? So because he was mevatel his reshus to the chatzar, he can't carry out into the chatzar. Like the halacha always is by bittul reshus. We learned this before. What's the halacha by bittul reshus? You're giving up your rights to the chatzar, so you can't carry in the chatzar. V'chaveiroi mutter, and your chaver could carry in the chatzar. Okay, so this is always the halacha of bittul reshus. So basically, the Gemara is saying if this wall comes down, so now the Eruv chatzar is not qualified anymore because it became like one big chatzar. And they didn't make an Eruv Chatzeiris together, so you're going to have to do Bittul Reshus. But it's interesting, this Braisa says Bittul Reshus is not enough. You have to lock your house also. So the Gemara is going to soon explain this. We've never had this before. We always spoke about Bittul Reshus, but here there's a new thing of locking your house. A similar thing we say, this goes back to what the Braisa said before. Just like we said before, when you have a wall of straw between two Reshusim and they have a separate Eruv Chatzeiris, so what did it say in the Braisa? Each Chatzar is allowed to come and feed their animals from this wall of straw. So similar would also be when you have a big goiv shel teven. How do they touch goiv over there? It's like a pit that's filled with. Is that the translation? Yeah, okay, a pit that's filled with straw. Shebem based chumei Shabbos. So let's say you have a pit that's positioned right between two cities, and you have the tchum Shabbos from one city, and part of the pit, the teven, belongs to one city, and part of the pit, the straw, belongs to another city. So what's the halacha? So goiv shel teven shebein based chumei Shabbos. So the people of one city could use the straw that's within their tchum Shabbos, and the people of the other city can use the straw that's within their tchum Shabbos. And we're not chayshish that they're going to take from each other's out of their tchum. Everyone takes what's in their tchum. Okay. So now, Katani Miyas. What did it say here in this Braisa? It clearly said in this Braisa that the person could take from this wall of straw into his basket. Rav Huna said you can't. Rav Huna said you could only allow the animal to eat by itself. Amri Bayis. So the Gemara answers. The answer that was given is in a house. Kivin de ikke mechitze v'tikre. Since there's a roof, ki mifches. When you see that the height of this wall is becoming less because you're taking from it, minkrele. You're going to notice that the height is coming down. So you're going to be careful not to take away the height that it's needed, which is 10 tfachim. But when you have a wall of straw, which is outdoors, and you're going to take from it and put it in your basket, it's not noticeable. You're not going to see that you're minimizing the height of the wall, so for that we're chayshish for, and therefore we don't let a person feed from it and take into a basket. So it's different. It's harder to notice the change that happens when you can't see the height of it. Okay, now the Gemara is going to focus on another part of this Braisa. So what did it say? Nismayet hateven me'asara tfachim shneim asurin. Actually, this goes back. Okay, the Gemara quotes the lashon of the Braisa, but it's that similar in the Mishnah also. That if the height is less than 10 tfachim, here we're talking in the house. Okay, so this Braisa, the Gemara is going to focus on the house. If you have in a house this wall, and the wall is less than 10 tfachim, they're going to both be aser. So the Gemara, ha asara, so we can be medayik from here, that if this wall of straw is 10 tfachim high, shari, so then it's allowed. Va'afal gav de medalya tikre tuva. Even if the roof of the house is much higher. Let's say you have a roof that's 20 tfachim high. Usually in a house, the roof of a house is not going to be 10 tfachim high. 10 tfachim high is about the height of this table. So mistama, the height of the roof is much more than 10 tfachim. It's probably 20, 25 tfachim high. So even if the height of the roof is much higher, and the wall of the straw is only 10 tfachim high, nevertheless, that's a good wall. It's considered to be a separation. What do we see from this? Shma mina mechitzes she'ein magiyos letikra. When you have a separation, a wall inside a house, even if it does not reach all the way to the ceiling, shman mechitzes. It's a good mechitza to separate. If you remember, we had a whole Mishnah, a whole machlokes about this between Rebbe and the Rabbanan. When you have many people that are living in a big traklin, people that are all sharing one big hall, and they make a separation between them. When is it considered to be a good separation? If it reaches the ceiling, it doesn't reach the ceiling. Right over here we see in this Braisa that even if it doesn't reach the ceiling, it's a good separation. Answers the Gemara, we're talking here about a house that has a very low roof. It has a roof of 13 tfachim with a mashu less of 13 tfachim. V'teven asara. And the height of the wall of the straw is 10 tfachim. So what happens? It's within lavud. It's like it reaches the roof basically. It's lavud to the roof, and therefore this is a mechitza that goes all the way up to the roof. That's this pshat. Rafuna Bereder Rav Yeshua Ama Afila Teme Bebayis Asara. You can say we're talking about a house that's 10 tvachim high. V'teven Shiva Umashahu. And if so, you don't need the wall of straw to be all the way to the roof. It could just be 7 and a little bit. If it reaches within 3 tvachim to the ceiling, so that's lavud. According to Abaye, it said in the Mishnah, that it said in the Braise, that the wall of straw has to be 10 tvachim high. What does it mean when it says that it became less than 10 tvachim high? It was never 10 tvachim high. It was only 7 tvachim high. 7 and a mashahu. And it says the Gemara, mitayras asara. It means that it became less than the height of tayras asara, meaning including the lavud. True, it wasn't physically 10 tvachim high, but together with the lavud, there was tayras asara. It's as if it's 10 tvachim high. That's the pshat in the Mishnah over here, the Braise over here.
The Braise says,
yeah?
Saying that they could do that.
Yes.
In this case, if it's exactly 10, exactly 7. How do you
Okay.
know that?
When they're going to be taking l'toich kupasai,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean it's going to bring the height necessarily down. We're now talking about a very thin mechitza. It has a big thickness to it. Even when you take from it, not necessarily is going to bring it down from that size. Yeah. Zok the Gemara, what else did it say in the Braise? What happens if on Shabbos they took from this wall and it minimized the height of the wall, so then Shneim Asurim, there's no wall anymore, so they can't carry anymore. So the Gemara, Shmami no, l'chayra, I could see from here, the Yurin Haboin b'Shabbos, if additional people are added into your Chatzar on Shabbos, Asurim, it's going to be Asur. What's the question? We had something that we learned before, when you get to Erev Chatzeres, and not only by Erev Chatzeres, that if you made the Erev Chatzeres properly, when Shabbos came in, and it was done, the heter was properly done in the beginning of Shabbos, that heter continues throughout the entire Shabbos. Even if something changes within Shabbos itself. There's exceptions to that, but usually that's the halacha. So when you make an Erev Chatzeres in your Rishus on Shabbos, and now on Shabbos a new person moves in, does that change the heter that you made with your Erev Chatzeres? No. Right over here, they made a proper Erev Chatzeres, and there was a wall separating the 2 Chatzeres. In middle of Shabbos, that wall came down, or the height of the wall was minimized, and now it becomes like one big Chatzer. So it's like a new person was added to your Chatzer, not as a problem with the Erev Chatzeres. So we see over here that it changes the status. And for the Gemara, not necessarily. Dilme the imit me'esma. When the Braise said Asurin, it didn't mean that it came down on Shabbos itself. It meant to say that if it came down before Shabbos, then you can't make 2 separate Erev Chatzeres, it would be Asur. But if it came down on Shabbos itself, not necessarily. Once you made it properly when Shabbos came in, it's good enough. What's the next thing it said in the Braise? Keitza du oise, noyel es beisai mevatel reshusai. So now if you don't have a good Erev Chatzeres, so one person is going to have to close his house, lock his house, be mevatel his reshus, so therefore the other person can carry here. Frek the Gemara, tarti, you have to do these 2 things. We never had this before. Usually bitl reshus. Over here all of a sudden you have to do 2 things. You have to close, you have to lock your house, and you also have to be mevatel your reshus. And says the Gemara,
So it sounds like target disaster. Closing your...
Why? No. Why is it?
Doors for no one to come in. I mean, how you will.
You're closing the doors in order for you not to carry out. That's the point. In order that you shouldn't carry out into the Chatzar. And says the Gemara, Hachi Kama. You wait to read this Braise is, Oy noyel es beisai, or you lock your house and then you don't have to say anything befedish that I'm being mevatel my reshus. Oy mevatel es reshusai. Or, it's either or. It's one opinion. But another opinion is, V'yiba yiseime la'oylon tarti. Be'emes, you do need to do both things. Why? Kivin de doshbei asilatul tuli. Since this person is accustomed to walking out into the reshus, if he's not going to lock his house, if he's just going to say bedibur, I'm mevatel my rights to this chatzar, he's going to forget. He's going to walk out. What happens if you use the chatzar after you mevatel your reshus? It undoes your bittul reshus. So therefore, you have to be noyel and to be mevatel reshus. So Rashi here says, according to the second teretz, this is taka true b'negeya to every single bittul reshus. Whenever you do bittul reshus, it's not enough just to say b'dibur. You have to taka lock the house. Otherwise, you'll forget. You'll walk out.
Or if you don't live in that house, you can bittul reshus, not a problem.
If you're not living there, so then you don't. If you're not living there, so you don't need bittul reshus b'chlal. So you don't need an erev. If you're talking about a person that's living there. Who also v'chaveirei muter. So then it says, you are mevatel your reshus, so you can't carry out, and your chaver could. Fragt the Gemara Pshita, it's obvious. That's how every Bittul Rishus works. And for the Gemara, Leitzriche, the Chiddush of what it said here, that your Chaver is going to be mutter, and your Aser is the Hadar Idach Ubatel Lechavre. We had this before. You could have Bittul Rishus, where one is Mevatel, Eiruvin is Mevatel, is Rishus to Shimon, to allow Shimon to carry out his stuff. But then Shimon has Rachmanis on Eiruvin. Eiruvin is stuck a whole Shabbos in his house. He can't carry out. So in the middle of Shabbos, Shimon is Mevatel back to Eiruvin. So now he gives Eiruvin a chance to carry out. So the Gemara says, no, you can't do that. You can't do Bittul Rishus and then in the middle of Shabbos the other person is Mevatel back to you. You Bittul Rishus once and that's it. We had a whole discussion about this before in the Gemara. That's what this Braisa holds. The Braisa then said, if you have a big pit of straw and half of the straw belongs to one tchum, other half of the straw belongs to another tchum, they could both use individually their part of the pit, and we're not chayshish that they're going to use from each other's part, that they're going to go out of the tchum. Frekt the Gemara Pshita, this seems to be obvious. Why should it be chayshish for such a thing? And for the Gemara, Leitzriche l'Rabbi Akiva. The Chiddush here is, according to Rabbi Akiva's Shitta, what does Rabbi Akiva hold? The Omar Tchumin d'Oiraisa. Rabbi Akiva holds the Isra of Tchumin is Minat Teira. So Ma'al the Teime, Dilma, Ligzer, Dilma, Asi, L'chlufi. So because it's an Isra Minat Teira, I should be geyser that one is going to confuse with the other, and they are going to, by mistake, take from what's out of their Tchum. If it's Isra d'Oiraisa, I should be chayshish for this. Kamash Malan, that the Chachamim were not geyser for this, and they weren't chayshish for this. Okay. Sagt the Mishnah, Keitzad Mishtatfen. How do you make the shittuf in a mavoi? So the shittuf in a mavoi is the same concept like a native chatzeris. You have many chatzeris that are sharing one mavoi, and they all have to share together food in one place, so that they're all like one chatzer that's opened up to this mavoi, so they can carry in this mavoi. How do you, practically speaking, make this shittuf? Do you have to actually go collect food from everybody? You don't have to. So this is, the way we do Erev Chatzeris today. What do? We don't go to your neighbors and collect any matzah or food. What do? Maniach esachavis, you take a barrel of food, and v'oimer, and you say, Harei zu l'chol b'nei mavoi u'mezakelen. So you say that you have in here in this barrel food that belongs to all the people of the mavoi. They're all sharing food that's in this barrel. U'mezakelen, and you have to be mezakeh to them. You have to sell it to them, so to speak. Al yidei b'noi u'bitoi hagedailim v'al yidei avdoi v'shivchasei ivrim. You could take your son, your daughter, which are over bar mitzvah, or an eved or a shivcha, and they could use it, they could lift it up, as we'll see in the Gemara, they lift it up and are being zeiche in it for all the people of the Chatzeris to be able to make the shittuf of Muvais. Or, Val Yedei Ishtoi, or your wife could also be zeiche in it for the other people of the other Chatzeris. Aval, Einoi Mizake, Loyal Yedei Benoye Bitoy Aktanim, you can't be Mizake to other people of the Chatzeris, not through your child, that's not bar mitzvah. Not through a eved or shivcha kananis mipnei sheyadon ki yadoi. All these cases, ktanim or a eved, kanani, shivcha kananis, they're like you yourself. So therefore, they can't be zeiche in it for another person because it's like you yourself picking it up for them. So it has to be someone else that's picking it up for them to be zeiche, to be their shliach, that when they pick it up, it's as if when someone picks it up for the other people of the Chatz, it's as if they picked it up. So here, there's a very big arichis in the Taisvis, beneged to the different cases that it said in the Mishnah over here. Benoi, Bitoy, Hagedailim, and Avda, and Shivchasai. Even when you have Benoi, Bitoy, Hagedailim, if they are living with you and they're eating on your table together with you, so even if they're Gedailim, but nevertheless, they don't have their own Rishus. They're together with you, B'chlal. They don't have their own chotzer, their own koyach to be zeicha for anybody else. Taisus is meirich in this. Taisus brings a Gemara in Kedushin. There's a machlekes about this. What does gedailim over here mean? Does gedailim mean just the fact that they're over bar mitzvah? Is that good enough? Or gedailim also means that they're independent. They're independent. They have their own food. They live in their own house. The same thing also when it comes to avdei and shivchasei. Avdei shivchasei ivrim. If you're talking about an eved and shivcha that eats from your food, so they don't have their own schos. They don't have their own chotzer. They're eating together with you. And the same thing also ishtoi. Really? If it's talking about his wife that is eating together with her husband, so then she also can't be zeichet to anybody else. The whole koyach over here is that you have people that are independent from you, and they are being zeiche in this Eruv, this barrel of food for the Eruv for themselves, and they're picking it up for themselves, and because they're being zeiche in it for themselves, they're also being zeiche for others. But if they are part of you and they don't have to be zeiche for themselves, b'chlal, so then they can't be zeiche for others either. You can look in Taisus. Taisus says, "Migu de zachil and avshei, zachin nami lachrini."
What about guests for Shabbos?
Yeah. So if they're eating by you, if the guests of Shabbos are they're eating by you, so then they don't have to make a separate Eid of Chatzeres, they also can. The only time when you can give it to someone to be zeiche for the Eid of Chatzeres for someone else is if that person has to take be zeiche in the Eid of Chatzeres for himself, and he's not being part of you.
Is that you actually are being zeicha at the moment?
Yes.
You can't pick something up and be zeicha for someone else?
No, over here you have to be, you're being zeicha in it now. Yeah. So therefore by yad, so when it says here in the Mishnah Isha, we're talking about an Isha that has her own house and she has her own place and therefore she has to make her own Erev Chatzeres. That's what Tosfos says.
That's still existing.
Huh?
That's still existing.
Yeah, still Ishta.
They could have had a couple of issues.
is the worst.
Huh? Because yad Ishta ki yad baila. No, but Beneget Erev Chatzeres though, if she has her own house, so Zayin Yad Ishta ki yad baila, but she lives in her own place, she has to make her own Erev Chatzeres. So if she's being, but she lives in her own place. If she lives in her own place, if she lives like Gabe Erev Chatzeres, if she lives in her own place in the Chatzer, she has to make a separate Erev Chatzeres. So therefore, when she's zeiche in it, it's going to work for everyone else. Sagt the Gemara Amar Yude Chavis Shal Shitufe Muvois. This is how we make Erev Chatzeres today, right? You don't. Okay. Upon Amar Yude Chavis Shal Shitufe Muvois. When you make this kinyan for the other people of the Chatzer, you have to lift it off the ground a tefach. So there's machlokes rishonim about this Gemara as well. If you look in the Tosfos, so Tosfos says l'chayre from here is a raya regarding any kinyan. Does that mean benegay to any kinyan that in order to make a kinyan of agba you just lift it up one tefach? So there's machlokes about this. Tosfos says no, you can't prove from here because over here. Which just it's not like mamish like a regular kinyan. The main thing is to show that they're being mishtatif in the food together, that they're living there because they have food that's designated for them over there. It's not like a regular kinyan. By a regular kinyan, how high do you have to pick it up? 3 tvachim. It shouldn't be lovet from the ground. Over here, you can pick it up only a tefach. But there are Rishonim that say, I believe Rabbeinu Tam holds, no, from this Gemara is a raya that every kinyan hagbah is only a tefach.
It's a big thing. Chavis is a big thing.
Maybe, not dafke. Saying it's hard to pick up.
So yeah, so this was
okay. Yeah. Amarave, Hani Tarti Mili. There are 2 statements. Sabi the Pumpedise Amrino. The older people of Pumpedise, the older Talmidei Chacham of Pumpedise said this. Who are they? If you look in Rashi, Sabi the Pumpedise, it was Rav Yehuda and his yeshiva. Rav Yehuda was from the older Amayraim, and he had a yeshiva in Pumbedisa. So we just said over here, Amar Rav Yehuda, there's one thing that we just said, now the Gemara is going to bring a second statement. Chadaha, one was this statement that we just said, that by the Eid of Chatzeres, you just have to pick it up one tefach. And Idach, another statement, unrelated, but a different statement, Hamekadish, when you make Kiddush, Im Ta'am Malay Lugmav Yatza, if you drank from the wine, Malay Lugmav, to fill your mouth, your yaitze. What's the shir of Malay Lugmav? There's different shiurim that the Rishonim speak about what Malay Lugmav means. Okay, usually Malay Lugmav mamish means you fill your entire mouth, but Tosfos says it doesn't. It only means that the wine that you can put in one cheek of your mouth. And how much is that? Roiv of Revius. That's the shit of Roiv Rishonim. That's how we paskin. So you have to be taim from the Kiddush a Roiv Revius. And if you wore, then Yotza, then you yaitze. If you were not Tayyim, Roiv of the Revius, Lo Yatza. You're not going to be Yaitze the Kiddush. Of course, we're talking over here about Kiddush Friday night when there's a Chiyuv to make Kiddush. The Chiyuv of Kiddush Friday night. So you have to be Tayyim from the Kiddush. But there is a machlekes Rishonim about this, and we had this once before in the Gemara. It doesn't necessarily mean that the person making Kiddush himself has to be Tayyim. Someone has to be Tayyim. Even someone else. We had once before about this in the Gemara, over here in Eiruvin actually. But someone has to be tayyim from the Kiddush, and if not, you're not yaitze. Rav Chavive says, Ha nami sabi the Pumpedisa amrino. There's another statement that was said in the name of the older Amiroim of Pompedise, and what is this? The Amar of Yehuda, which again, Rav Yehuda was this yeshiva, this from Pompedise. Amar Shmuel, the name of Shmuel, Oisin Medura L'chaye B'Shabbos. You're allowed to make a fire, like a fireplace, to heat up the house for a woman that gave birth on Shabbos. That was the statement that he said. Why? Because she's like a chayla sheyesh basakana. So you can be machal Shabbos for her. Sava mina. So the Gemara thought, based on this statement, that what's the chiddush? What is he saying? L'chaya in could only make it for a woman that gave birth. L'chayla loy, but a person even a chayla sheyesh basakana, you're not allowed. And what did he say? And they also thought, only when it's cold, then you're allowed. But if it's hot outside, it's not allowed. That's what they thought. But the emes says it's a mistake. Why? Because Itmer, Amen of Chir bar Oven, Omar Shmuel, Hikis dam v'nitztanen, a person let blood, and because of that he felt cold. And we once learned the whole sugya about this in Shabbos, where the Gemara says that in those times when they took out blood, they took out a lot of blood, and you can mamish become ta sakonet, like a chayla sheyesh be sakone. So therefore, oisin loy medura b'Shabbos, you're allowed to make a fire on Shabbos to heat up this person. So it's not only a chaya, not only a woman that gave birth, any chayla sheyesh be sakone, va'afilu b'tkufas tamus. And it's not only in the winter, even in the summer, even if it's hot outside, you're allowed to make this fire on Shabbos.
Go ahead.